All right. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Mark's Backyard. One Love Lectures. So today I'm here with Jake, and we're going to be talking about our sport. So that's going to be Buhurt, which is the full armored combat, full contact armored steel fighting. So Jake, a little introduction from yourself.
Yeah, so I've been doing armored combat for 11 years now, and before that I did boffer fighting for, I don't know, and so this before I was talking to girls, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I wasn't talking to girls because I was doing boffer fighting. How's that? Yeah. So I've been swinging a sword-like object for over 20 years, and I've been doing Buhurt for a long time now. Currently hold a world title position in the International Medieval Combat Federation, and I don't know, every time I try to quit, they keep bringing me back.
You're not allowed to quit. I mean, you can still fight good, so.
Well, yeah, apparently.
As soon as you break something, though, it's out back with you.
Yeah, so talking about armored combat and Buhurt, it is a recreation of 15th century medieval tournament fighting. The rule set, and it's fairly modernized, but it is based in historical rule books that were for tournament fighting. So there's a German king by the name of King Rene that was really into the tournament scene, and he really built it up, and there were international rules regulations that he had a major hand in codifying. The post-World War II era, like well into the 60s, that's when pretty much everywhere in the Western world and Eastern Europe, everybody started doing medieval reenactment. In Britain, they have the Medieval Society. They call it MSOC, and it started about the same time as the Society for Creative Anachronisms, which is the big
Yeah, because that one started in the 70s, I think.
60s or 70s is around, yeah, the 60s and 70s is kind of when everything started. So there was kind of this baseline of reproducing armor-like stuff and sword-like objects and medieval clothing and shoes and da-da-da-da-da. And out of that, that's when the Russians, of all people, surprise, surprise, said, let's make it hotter. And they created Buhurt, which was the historical term for our sport. They used the tournament manuals from King Rene from 600 years ago as their baseline. Everybody in the surrounding countries in Europe all saw what they were doing and said, well, we want to get in on this. And they created the international organization called Historical Medieval Battles International Association. It's very clumsily named.
Yeah, it was.
And that started in 08, 09, something like that. And then in 2012, the guys in the United States heard about it, and people were talking about doing steel, full contact steel, and they saw that there was already an international federation.
That was bubbling up out of the SCA communities. Back then, before 2012, I was a minor at the time, because I joined the SCA when I was 16. There were still rumblings about bringing steel to the U.S. back when I was first starting. So I know it started well before that.
Yeah. In 2012, that is when the first American team went over to their world championship was called Battle of the Nations. And they went over to Warsaw, Poland to go do that. It was 29 guys. We called them the 29. And that's when the United States became involved. And then a couple years into that, the inherent corruption in HMB became really apparent, is institutional and is in favor of the Russian fighters. Russians could, they get knocked down and they could just get right back up and get in the fight. They didn't actually have to play by the rules, and it was really bad. And a lot of countries were really pissed about it. And so out of that, they created the International Medieval Combat Federation. Those two international federations kind of were at odds with each other until COVID put a pause on everything. And then the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine. And all of a sudden, HMB functionally ceased to exist, which confirmed everybody's suspicions that HMB was a money laundering operation for a Russian oligarch. Because the sanctions hit and they couldn't spend their money outside of their country.
Yeah, and so literally HMB was gone just like that.
Literally with the flick of Joe Biden's pen. But the community still existed, and out of that they stood up what is now called Buhurt International. That's the basic history of the sport on an international level. You have two fundamental classifications of competitive events. You have the group fights that are called melees, and then you have the single combat. And there's two subsets of single combat. You have duels, and it's all about landing strikes on your opponent with your weapon. It looks like what you would think a sword fight looks like, where we're hitting each other with swords and whatnot. The other half is pro fights.
Well, that one's still points-based. I mean, it's still not how I'd prefer it to be, but it's points-based, punches, kicks, strikes, throws, grapples.
It's like a cage fight.
Ground fighting. It goes for a set number of minutes for a set number of rounds, and whoever has the most points or a knockout wins.
Yep. And then the duels, it goes for, it's 60-second rounds. You accrue points over 2 rounds. Whoever has the most points at the end of 2 rounds wins. Then the melees are very different. You're not accruing points. The goal is to take the opposing team's players out of play. You take them out of play by putting them on the ground. To be exact, metric for what does it mean to be on the ground is 3 points of contact. And your feet, no matter where they are, always count as 2 points of contact. So you could be doing a headstand, you're out, because your feet, even though they're in the air, they count as your 2 points of contact. And there's a whole meta developed around, you can get them on the ground through knockout, knockdown, or submission. So little guys like me, going head on, it's a lot of work to wrestle somebody to the ground. So I like to run around like a bat out of hell and earhole people like I'm in football.
And then I play a very different game where I like to, well, right now I'm playing more of a static position where I'm on the rail. My goal is just to not go down and be the solid, sturdy defense. Grab onto people if I can. One of the things that I love to do for Jake and some other people is I will try to grab 1 or 2 people, put my back up against our arena, and just wait for one of these guys to come start hitting them in the back.
Yes, that's where pain compliance comes in. You hit them so hard, they voluntarily remove themselves from the contest. Or you knock them out. You make them take a nap. Can't fight if you're asleep.
I've only managed to do that once, so.
Yeah, knockouts are hard, especially nowadays.
Have you ever been knocked out?
No.
No,
never even had a concussion.
I've never had a concussion, but I've been very close to being knocked out once.
I think that means you had a concussion, Trey.
Okay, so look. So here's how the story goes. We were down at Pirate Fest.
Okay.
I was tagging up with this Irish gentleman, and we were wrestling up against the rail, and he flips my back out, and then he says, I think his name's Justice or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know, but he says this, whatever the guy's name is, he's coming, and I'm like. I looked at him and I said, shit. And he running shield punched me in the back of the head. So hard.
And you almost went to sleep.
I almost went to sleep.
Was it hard to do addition and subtraction for a while after that, Trey?
I'm not even confident that I knew what my name was.
Okay, you had a concussion, Trey.
Well, I was fine like 20 minutes later.
All right.
I'm going to say almost because I think I remember somebody checking me for a TBI, but I've never gotten hurt in my helmet, okay? So but running shield punches hurt.
Yes, they do. That's a lot of weight coming in on a shield, on the edge of a shield.
I wanted to bring some stuff out for you guys to check out. If you haven't seen them yet, you're welcome to come play with them. Just some weapons and
We're
whatnot.
going to pass these around for you guys. Just pass them around. Once it gets through everybody, just send them back to us.
Yeah, so that one's my personal favorite one. So that's a Makowitsky chopper that was custom made for me by a guy on our team named Jonathan Cheney. The old one I had was named the cheese knife because it looks like a butter knife.
Yeah.
But that one I don't really have a name for. It just I don't know. I'm not that creative. Here, you can talk about your own weapon. But.
There. I'll let you guys pass around the helmet too. Good luck getting your head in there. I've got a narrow head. It's custom made for me. Yeah, so the explanation of weapons and armor. So our stuff does have to be historically analogous, which means there's a certain threshold of aesthetic authenticity that the kit has to have. Meaning, I actually have to be able to prove that the armor and the weapons that I'm using actually existed historically. And there's a lot of sources that we use to do that, like with Western weapons and Western armor. There's a lot of really well-documented sources. You use like effigies. So if you ever look at like a coffin and then like the lid of the coffin is like alabaster stone and it's got the guy's likeness carved into it, that's an effigy. So that's one of the things that people use as source material to prove that their armor existed. There's a lot of paintings and artwork that are still extant from the medieval period that people rely on. And then of course, extant arms and armor. I'm that one lunatic that uses Japanese weapons and Japanese armor.
This is a great opportunity. European versus Japanese Eastern kits.
Western stuff's way better.
You know what the typical knight looks like, right? He's got the the bassinet, just the full plate, or maybe he's wearing like a brigandine or something like that. One of the interesting things is that me and Jake don't wear Western kits at all. I wear a Mongolian heavy cavalryman set, and he wears a Japanese samurai kit from the Sengoku period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So big differences even between those, though.
Yeah. Extreme differences. Yeah, so like the Western Europeans, the medieval Western European smiths, they cracked the code on making a metal exoskeleton that rides well with your body. That whole thing on the internet that you heard where the knights were slow and long swords were basically just crowbars that you beat people to death with, that's all crap. That is completely untrue. In my Western kit, because I started out in Western armor before I went into Japanese stuff, I can literally fold myself in half. Like you can do a full cartwheel in it. If you can't move, you can't fight. If you can't fight on a battlefield, you die. The kernel of truth in the chaff is that they're thinking of jousting armor, again, from like A Knight's Tale, right? Because you see the scene where Heath Ledger's in his new armor and he just like hops right into the saddle, right? And then there's that other dude that's struggling to get up into the saddle. Well, sport jousting armor, they overbuilt it to make it as safe as possible because it was a sport, right? So they did forfeit a ton of mobility and they made it extraordinarily heavy because they just wanted to keep doing it. And the armor's expensive anyway, so just build it to last. But what they took with them onto the battlefield, depending on how they chose to configure it, as light as 40 pounds, as heavy as 80 pounds, depending on what they thought they were going to do. Good example of this, you take the Battle of Agincourt, really famous battle between the English and the French. And that's where like the English, set up a battle line and the French had to charge them through knee-deep mud because the farmer had just plowed his field, right? The English knew they were going to be fighting in mud, so they went with a lighter configuration of their kit, right? They wore less armor, and the French stupidly wore the heaviest configuration possible. So that's an example of where they would configure their armor to be optimal for what they're doing. But fact of the matter is, Western armor, you move in it just fine, and you can fight in it all day because I did it for a really long time. I do Japanese armor for the drip, but it's not nearly as good. It's not nearly as safe.
And you made your entire Japanese kit, so
Yeah, everything except my gauntlets.
what are some differences? Other than I know that the Japanese had a steel quality issue for a while, but like what are you noticing the major differences? I know you've talked to I know you mentioned it. I think you mentioned it the other day. Is the Japanese found the most complicated way to do things well?
Yeah, I think with like their armor, the big thing is joint protection. If you look at a Western leg defense, so you have a solid plate wrapped around your thigh, then you have a knee plate that it articulates against that thigh plate. So it stays completely enclosed the entire articulation of your knee. The Japanese variant of that, they didn't do that. Like half the time they didn't really wear anything solid protecting their knees. And part of the reason for that is because they spent a lot of time on horseback shooting bows and arrows and stuff. But again, they didn't have anything really for their elbows. Like the forearm defense came up, and then it basically stopped right here. And then the back of your elbow was completely exposed. That is a major difference. The Europeans were the only ones that figured out an enclosed joint defense. Nobody else cracked that. I think that's a big one. Another one, like I've got that grotesque mask. They didn't actually wear any face protection. They're pretty sure, researchers are pretty sure they just went in with an open face. And on one hand, it kind of makes sense, like, because if you gas out, you die.
Well, I mean, and that's the same thing with Europeans. I mean, any manuscripts or pictures you look at from old historical battles, most people are rocking an open face. I can tell you, even like his is fairly open. I wear, I've got a chain face, so I basically just have chainmail in front of my face with a cage right behind it just for safety. I have probably one of the easiest helmets to breathe and see in, and it still sucks having something in front of your face when you're fighting. Yeah. It just sucks. Now I just wanted to get in and just talk a little bit about what we're doing here locally. We are Invictus Armored Combat, and we were actually born out of the Salt Lake City Crusaders, which started way before that. I know Jake was part of the original founding of that. The Salt Lake City Crusaders, unfortunately, didn't last very long, and so that ended up splintering up. That's where you get into Invictus Armored Combat, which is our group. We operate out of Salt Lake City, but we have guys who run the gambit from Brigham City all the way down to how far south?
Spanish Fork.
But yeah, we're the local team, and we've been widely considered. I think the Utah community for armored combat has been widely considered, I think, the largest in the country for a minute.
Yeah, the Crusaders. Yeah, when we were all under one banner, it was one of the big ones. Yeah, I'd say one of the big ones. And so yeah, we started up a year and a half ago. We mainly do two things. So we compete in tournaments and we do Ren fairs, and that's the big things. Those are the big two events that we do. We also do charity events, private events. Like I fought at a couple weddings. We were invited to come out to. I think I did a children's birthday party once. Nice.
I know we did the library event for school, but Renaissance fairs are the big ones. So we typically do a lot of the fairs and events. That's how we make our particular organization money. It's how we pay for travel, repairs, our equipment. Typically, the fighters fund their own armor, but as far as like our arena, our sound system, our media gal, all of our side stuff. When we go to a tournament or event, we need somebody to give us pickles and water and Gatorade when we're done fighting, because I can barely take care of myself when I'm done after a bout. Mm-hmm. So that's what we go to events to do. Is it pays for all that. So it pays for us to go to tournaments and do the things that we want to do. I would say right now, as far as our team goes, we've got one gold medal to our name melee-wise. Mm-hmm. Or actually, I guess that would be whole tournament-wise, because you took all the gold medals at that tournament. Yeah. So we went to a tournament. This was last August, I believe it was. October. We swept gold in everything, but he did all 4 dual categories. So not only was he in the melees with us, but then right after the melees, when they switched to duels to give the melee guys a break, he would jump right back in and do the duels too. And he did all 4 categories, and we took gold in all of them, right?
Yeah, I won them all.
So
yeah, I won them all. It was a lower level tournament, so it wasn't too bad, but I wouldn't have been able to do that.
You were still gassed, though.
Yeah, it was a rough day. I had to do it with the flu. Like, dang it.
Yeah.
Fighting with the flu is rough.
Yeah. And then other than that, again, there's 2 different sides of it. The tournament side, we're more serious, and then the Renaissance Fair side, or the event side, we can be a little bit more silly with it. We've done mock like WWE style fights. I know we did one fight. What was it, in Pocatello? I think about a year and a half, 2 years ago. It was about 2 years ago, where we did it was a gimmick fight. So we all fought with walkers and like and canes and stuff like that. Like, and we destroyed them. Like, we beat each other up with them.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. We'll hit each other with chairs and stuff. Hit him with the steel chair. It's a shtick we do with that.
But the big thing is it's a good community, just like any other martial art. You know, I don't like to, we sometimes get lumped in with a lot of the LARPing stuff, and to some degree that we do that. I mean, we're wearing medieval armor and whatnot, but instead of like the pomp and circumstance of, oh, we're knights, we're pretending we're in this realm, which some people will do, but not very many. Really, I think the general culture of our team, as well as the entire sport itself, is it's a sport, and we treat it like a sport. Yeah, it's one of those sports where if you don't, I think I was really lazy, depressed, and really fat before I joined the sport. And then I joined the sport and I realized, oh crap, if I'm going to be any good at this, I need to go to the gym and eat better.
Yeah.
And so I did, and it made me probably the most fit I've been since I was ultra running.
It's not like SCA where you can be fat and still be good at it,
But there's a real heavy cardio element to it, like,
yes.
and nobody who's any good at this sport doesn't work at it in their off time.
Yes.
But the community is really positive. I mean, there's very, very few people that I've met in the sport, whether that's locally or just out in the community, that I haven't actually really enjoyed being around. Because, we all know that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who wins or loses when we get into the ring. We're all really there. We're all nerds, dressed out in kit and just fighting each other. We fight each other, we help each other up at the end of the day, and then we get back up. I mean, there was a guy that I dumped really badly at the last tournament that we were at, and the second the bell rang, it's like, okay, let me help him up. And he was like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And I've done the same thing when I've been taken out too.
You tear each other up, and then you help each other out of the dirt and go get a steak. That's major.
Always go get a steak or a burger or something like that when you're done with that. So I guess the real question is, and Jake, this is one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on. Why Buhurt over any other combat sport?
Oh, I've always liked swords, and now I get to use them. It's pretty simple for me. A lot of people it gives me purpose and community. I'm like, no, I get to play with swords.
Yeah.
I wish it was deeper than that. It's not.
So I found the sport because I love to watch the History Channel, and a particular show came on the History Channel.
Night Fight?
Night Fight.
Nice.
I was watching Night Fight. I was watching Buddy's episode with Bam Bam, which now it's funny because I know both of them personally.
Yeah.
But there's a guy on there. His name's Paul the Barbarian. I've never actually been on field with him. I looked him up on Facebook, and he's the one who sent me to the Crusaders.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can blame Paul for that.
Oh,
Paul. Yeah, I literally just messaged him on Facebook because I didn't realize at the time, even though there's this History Channel show, when I joined, even like when I first came was in 2019. I didn't realize at the time in 2019, this sport was very small.
Mm-hmm.
I joined the team when it was 12 to 15 people, roughly.
Yeah.
But then I come to find out almost everybody that I saw on the Night Fight History Channel show, I've met 75% of them. But, and nowadays, I mean, almost every single state has one or more teams with multiple members on it. We've got multiple leagues. We've got Buhurt International. We've got IMCF. And then
those are the two big
ones. And then we've
bodies.
got some smaller local ones. We've now got AMMA, which I don't know if you guys have seen some videos of that floating around. The AMMA, which is more of the cage fighting style, is really coming into its own. Basically, take the UFC and put it in armor, and it's
give them a sword and a shield.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. They stream it on YouTube all the time. One of our buddies, Bam Bam, just did his first pro fight in it. Yep. We've got a guy on our team who's about to go compete in it.
It's in a cage.
It's in a cage, but it's getting pretty up there. And I'm even looking at possibly, like, I've switched up my training style because we've got a guy on our team who's going to AMMA. I'm the only guy on the team who's his size. So now I'm training so that way I can be a good competitor for him to train against. So now I'm starting to change my mind a little bit on it and be like, maybe I should go try that out. Yeah, it's about $3,000. The nice thing about it though, and this is a selling point I always say to everybody, if you maintain your armor, it resales typically for 90% of what you paid for it.
Yeah,
as long as you take care of it.
Take good care of it, you'd be just
so whenever you're done with it, you just sell it back, you make most of your money back. My kit is 16 years old and I'm its 4th owner, I think.
You kidding me?
Yeah. My kit, you can see there in 2012, a Battle of the Nations video, my kit is in it.
No way.
Yeah, my kit is old. I don't know. I just remember. I just know that it was originally owned by a Ukrainian, then a Polish guy bought it, then James bought it, then I bought it.
It's like some of that OG titanium armor that they weren't supposed to have that they totally did.
Yeah. So, I mean, it lasts forever if you maintain it. I mean, I've reskinned mine a couple of times. It's metal. It's rivets. Occasionally it breaks and you have to replace something, but like most of the time it doesn't. I mean, what would you say is like the worst thing you've seen?
Oh, I've seen a helmet shatter. I've seen helmets crack. But like, they don't do that anymore. The helmet makers figured it out, but woof. Yeah, when spring steel helmets, they came out of Ukraine, they cracked all the time for a couple of years.
Maces, axes.
Something with blunt force trauma, yeah. So like in the group fights where I want pain compliance, I use something that's got some thump to it. I use an axe
like that.
So my katana, I don't use that in the group fights. I just use it in the longsword dueling category. So if you're going to use something like an axe or a mace, they're not particularly nimble. So it's like you got to swing and recover, swing and recover, swing and recover, right? The nice thing about Tre's chopper sword is it doesn't hit necessarily quite as hard as, say, a max weight axe, like, you know, pole axe or Vulge or something. But it is a lot more nimble. It's like better damage per second.
Like I can sit there and just swing that thing all day without too much of a problem.
Yeah, its maximum damage is maybe a little bit lower, but it does a higher percentage of its maximum possible damage every time you hit.
And then as far as like just straight hammers, that is one of the things we don't allow those.
Yeah. Other disallowed weapons, war picks. You know, picks are out.
Picks.
Yep. Yeah, picks are out. Then we have, there's maximum weight limits. So like you see his flanged mace, that's only allowed to be 2.2 pounds because maces work really well. So they gotta temper, they gotta motor that back.
And then like my chopper, I think I'm at the bare minimum, or I'm at the maximum weight for BI on it.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, so at a tournament, they have what's called weapon and helmet check. So like there's tournament officials and you line up with all your gear and it's like weapons here, helmets here, shields here, and there's things that we got to have. Like if you look at like the tip of the sword, there's a radius there. So you have what's called calipers. They're cut out on a CNC machine, and so they check the radius of the tip. They actually check the width of your edge. It's got to be no thinner than 2 millimeters wide. There's actually a whole thing for that.
Yeah. So for instance, one of the problems I had is so this was originally a max weight weapon for the IMCF. And then BI came around and they have slightly different rules in the IMCF. So I went to a BI tournament and they put this on the scale and they were like, it's overweight. So
2 points.
I sat there and this is really hard aircraft steel. Mm-hmm. So I sat there with a file trying my damnedest to file this thing down just like I didn't want to take too much off of it, but just a little bit where I could to try to get this thing down to weight. Eventually it was so close. I think it was only like an ounce off. The marshal ultimately let me fight in the tournament with it, but he said, if you show up to another one of my tournaments with that and it's still overweight,
I'm not gonna let you through. He did you solid for an ounce, because what's an ounce gonna do?
Yeah, he did me a solid for an ounce. So what we actually ended up doing is originally this handle was completely straight. I had to have my buddy John go in and cut those grooves out. He took a little bit of material off. So this is now legal for all of our leagues. But that is how close they care about the weight. They almost didn't allow me for an ounce.
Over an ounce. Yep. So hammers, like flails, just because they're not sure they actually existed. I think on like the Japanese side of the house, one of the things they don't let us use is the kanabo. It's that hexagonal stick that's got a bunch of steel studs in it. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, they're like, no way. And they tested it up in Canada just to see, and it like caved in a backplate on a solid cuirass. I'm like, okay, all right. There's a couple of names for it, like a Tetsubo or a Kanabo. Yeah, it's just got iron studs that are just hammered into it, and apparently it's freaking lethal. I was really depressed about that. Like, if you can get it under 2.2 pounds, we'll call it a mace. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to get something this tall under 2.2 pounds. Anyway.
Yeah, not gonna happen. You can?
You can. It's not particularly effective.
I've seen some videos of people doing it, but I think I saw a video of you pounding Ryan with it.
Oh yeah, I had two little falchions that are about this long, and like it didn't have a pommel, just the handle kind of came around and made like a D ring. So just bah, 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 bah. But yeah, I mean, in melees where you kind of got to grapple and you need sort of an open hand, it's not great. Yeah.
Most of the time you just see people running standard. They're either running a two-handed, or they're running a shield and one weapon, or they're just running one weapon. Occasionally you'll see somebody running with two, but it's not terribly common because, again, just because grappling is a thing, it's usually preferable to not take a second weapon and actually have an open hand. So that way you can grab stuff or whatever you got to do.
Yep. One-handed axe about that long, and what we call a punch buckler. It's about this big.
I got a buckler. I mean, I got a punch shield.
Yeah, we got a punch shield. The punch shield's kind of given way to the punch buckler, but it's literally a buckler about this big that literally just straps to your hand. So you can open your hand. That is by far the most common weapon that you see now.
I really want one of those, by the way. But that's a punch shield. So the reason it's called a punch shield is the way it straps to your hand. You can literally punch people with it. No, so you flip your hand around, and that's how you hold it. And then you literally can punch like it's a field, and you try to hit people right on that edge. So when I say I took a punch shield to the back of the head, there's somebody running at me with one of those.
Well, in terms of the samurai armor, I just do it for the drip. That's literally it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like what weapons you carry in your helmet and stuff, like different armor styles or even different kinds of construction just in Western armor, that's going to kind of be dictated by your body type. It's kind of like wearing a tailored suit. Guys that are built a lot like Tre, big barrel-chested dudes, like the Mongolian style of armor, it's just a lot easier for a body like his to wear it and ride well and fit well. But if you get these guys that are built like the Gold's Gym guy, broad back, narrow waist, you see them in these really stylish Italian-style brigandines where it's got like a waist and then it comes back out. So some of it is just kind of based on what style of armor actually just rides well on your body. That's a big part of it. And then in terms of the weapons that you use, again, that's a lot of preference. I found, the axe that I use in melees is about this long, weighs about 4 pounds, and I figured out really fast that's what I like. Just clicked, it's saying to me, and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. And luckily the Japanese had battle axes too, so so I get to do that.
Well, I mean, it was the same for me. I mean, I started using a mason buckler. I was never a big fan of punch shields. I'm starting to figure out how to use them, but wasn't a huge fan of them. And then one day I just got my hand on a two-handed falchion. I actually just bought it randomly from Canadian Buhurt. And I realized the one I had at the time, which I didn't bring it today, it's actually still in one piece. It wasn't necessarily that it hit very hard, but I found out how to grapple with it. Like, it's just something about the two-handed weapon I figured out how to grapple with and not really have a super hard time. The real click for me came when we were at Nationals 2 years ago. Our friend John Chaney, literally, we were about to get into the list. It was our second day. And he comes and hands me this and he says, "Here." And ultimately he was like, we'll talk about the payment later. And then eventually he's just like, it's your birthday present. It's your Christmas
Love
present.
at first sight. It was love at first sight. I have to use Japanese weapons with my Japanese armor. I mean, they're not crazy strict with it, but yeah.
But it can't look obviously wrong.
Yeah, like I can't look like a knight and be using a katana. That'd cause a stir.
Like, that's why I'm particularly fond of having the Mongolian kit, because I can justify a lot of different stuff.
Right, because the Mongolian Empire covered most of the known world.
Yeah, so I can justify all sorts of stuff as I stole it. So like technically my chopper comes out of the Makowitsky Bible, which is English, but I can totally justify something like that making its way down to Eastern Europe or whatever.
Yeah. I'm amazed they let us use those because there's no extant choppers. Like, none of them survived. It's just you literally have a manuscript book that's about this big and people just drawing stuff in it. So, and the swords look like the orc swords from the Lord of the Rings. Like seems kind of impractical.
It's a historical source. I'll take it.
Yeah, so I mean, the injuries you get basically be what you get on a jiu-jitsu mat, knee and shoulders and stuff, pulled muscles. Concussions have become extraordinarily uncommon.
Yeah, very, very uncommon.
Yeah, they're way more uncommon. I mean, the way you actually get them, it's not by getting hit in the head, it's by falling on your head. So your big tall guy goes down hard and boom, it bangs his head against the ground. That's really how you get them these days. Just because we've everybody's been working on helmet padding systems like it's a cure for cancer.
Well, I mean, because everybody wants to keep fighting. I mean,
we don't want to get CTE.
Because how it is, you get one too many concussions. I mean, we've had some guys who've had to quit the sport just because they're like, I've had a lot of concussions in the past. I came into the sport. I got like a minor one that worried me, and I don't want to screw myself up in the future. So
Yeah. When your neurologist tells you you're done, that means you're done. But yeah, it's mostly just the same stuff you get in any other contact sport. Every once in a while, you get some freak show injury with broken bones, but that's pretty dang uncommon, which has made procuring liability insurance for events a lot easier because there's really good data on it. The liability providers feel a little more comfortable after so many years without somebody dying.
Yeah, I mean, we have. I don't even remember ever hearing about somebody dying in this sport.
Oh no.
I mean, we've had some bad injuries, but nothing too crazy, and it's definitely not common. I mean, the worst I have ever seen was it when Austin got gapped and it snapped his arm?
That was me.
Oh yeah, it was you.
It was me.
So
and it wasn't a gap. I did break it through his arm.
Oh, it wasn't a gap. I thought he got gapped.
Well,
but it was like just a random freak. It hit just right. Whatever's going on in his bones that day was just right. And yeah, he broke his arm.
Yeah, that was me. I felt really bad about that.
But I mean, it's super rare. Like I almost never hear that happening. Like for me personally, the worst stuff I've had to deal with, I've torn my labrum just executing a throw wrong. Just like I just torqued it way too far, and I felt it, and I'm like, I should stop. Well, because I remember when I did it, I hyperextended, and then I immediately was like, and we're done with that throw. We're just gonna stop. But we're good. But obviously everything's good now. It wasn't like a full tear or anything crazy. It was just like, hey, I should knock this off. I know I've had an overuse in my knee.
Yeah.
Where like I'd been fighting all day, many, many, many rounds. It was over at Pocatello, and then I was just walking. I took a step, and it was just like, and we're done. Fell right over.
Turning that off. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a tear or anything. It was just like, okay, this is an overuse. I need to chill out. But it wasn't. I've personally never had anything serious. I know, Jake, you really haven't had anything too serious.
No. Just did a number on my ankle one time. That was it. I've been lucky.
If we do have serious stuff, a lot of times it's just like freak show accidents that could happen with anything else. So. So that very much depends.
What's yours?
Like mine personally is about 95 pounds.
Okay.
So my whole get up from head to toe is 95 pounds.
Mine is like 55, 60, something like that. The kits that guys use for like the sword and buckler duels where they just don't have to have a lot of protection, they get it down to like 30. Yeah, like the helmets are small, they're thinner, the armor, that's mostly titanium, it's all titanium, it's very minimalist, they can get it really light, and then you get these giant behemoths that are like going to be holding up a rail in a 16-man fight. They're like 120 pounds. So it's pretty wide.
And it also, again, very much depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, what you're doing and how big you are. That's the big one. There's more of you to cover you up.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, one of the reasons I wanted to bring Jake out is, when we're talking about the sport, when we're on the field and we're typically fielding in a 5 versus 5 melee, me and him are playing two completely different games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the big guy who's not moving. He's the guy running around, doing his stuff. So it is more beneficial for him to have lighter armor, but there's a downside to that. Jake, how much do you like being hit?
Don't like it at all. If I get pinned in a corner, I'm in trouble. I don't like it.
Yeah, he hurts when he gets hit. I get a bruise at worst usually.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had people sitting there just chopping on me. And I don't know if it's a mixture of my pain tolerance and my armor thickness, but like I get bruised, but I've not been dropped with a chop in a very long time. I will say Jake's dropped me with a kidney shot. So
yeah.
Well, he didn't drop me, but I know that I had to sit down the next round. Like I finished the fight and then I'm like, oh man, that hurts really bad. I didn't tell you, so stand up real quick, Jake. But when I'm on the rail and I'm usually on the right side, this is where I'm aiming. I'm aiming right in there.
Yeah.
Right in that hip. And I'm trying to get that point right in there. And that's what I'm mainly working when I'm on the rail. And I'm usually on the right side. So even though I'm right-handed and I'm super used to throwing right-handed shots, I actually fight 90% of the time left-handed. And then guess what?
What?
Once the fight shifts, I just switch it back. It's not a big deal.
In terms of like joint locks, you can't bend or put pressure on a joint against its natural range of motion. That is one of the no-nos.
Because when we do a lot of grappling, but remember the main rule for us is 3 points of contact and you're considered out. So what we're trying to do is get people on the ground. So ours is a lot of throws.
Yep.
If you put your hand down, that's 3. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Like the Asotogari, the Taitoshi, the Ushimata.
Good old standard hip throws.
Those are big staples. So like you kind of have to adapt the throw so you don't go with them. What you see a lot of guys doing is like...
Here, you can demonstrate it.
Yeah. So if like if the railing is right here and I've got Tre and I've got him like underhook like this, I'll just hook the rail with my arm and then, do the thing, get him going.
If you clearly have a solid base and you set somebody down,
And your hand is on them, it's kind of a gray area.
like you're technically touching the ground.
It depends on what really the line judge perceives it. Because if he's like, well, he kind of sort of needed the body, but he's okay. He got the throw, he won the contest, okay. But if I'm like on my belly on top of you, and then I like get my feet under me and I do that, my ass is out. They're gonna sit me. But if it's like I get Tre and then I just kind of touch my hand on his belly to recover, they'll let you you can stay up with that. So again, this is for particularly in the duels, if you lose your weapon, it just awards your opponent 2 points and then you pick it up and keep going. In the melees, you cannot do anything offensive without a weapon, what is classified as a weapon in your hand. So what we have, what is standard use now, is our fighting enclosure. The historic term for it is a list. And we have now what are called tabletop lists. So everything around it's not a rail that you can wrap around. It's actually like a tabletop. So you can kind of do it, but it's a really bad idea because,
You put your arm out and then people are going to chop it.
So on your team's side of the list, there's a taped in area where you put spare weapons. So if you lose it, you got to haul ass.
If you lose a weapon, you have to run and go get another one. And it sucks when it happens because I've had it happen when I was like in the middle of a really intense engagement that I was sure I was going to win. And then I lost my weapon. I was like, I gotta go, immediately. And you can guarantee if you're running to get another weapon, someone's
on your
chasing
ass.
you.
Someone is right up your ass.
There are sometimes though, you'll see people though, they'll wear like a D-ring or something. They'll keep something like a mace right here just as a backup. So if they lose their weapon, they can just be good to go.
Visualize this like a top view of our enclosure, right? And so if you're looking at it from above, you have the guys on the rails, they're called 1s. The guys next to them are called 2s. And the dude in the center is called a 3. The other term for that colloquially is rail, wing, center. Those are the terms that we use for the 5-man tactics.
Like for instance, I am a 1, so I am on the rail. I will occasionally run a 2 as a wing. And then Jake is pretty universally a center, although he's winged for me a few times successfully. What would you say, how would you describe those positions?
So the 1s, they're just, they don't really have to be tactically smart. You just grab the guy and wrestle him. Grab the guy in front of you, just wrestle him. The wing, there's so many ways to get these takedowns. You grab them, you throw them, but that's a lot of work, fighting for position, and they're fighting you for position. So there's a really popular maneuver. We call it a head rip, Tre turn around.
Yep.
It's literally just come up, grab him from behind, and do that.
Yep.
Because it's like that's a way easier way to get a takedown. So that's what a lot of 3s are doing is like you just kind of run around into their backfield and like look for somebody that's not looking and then rip them down and stuff. So
because you got to remember, you got 20 pounds on your head too. So like it's real easy to just crank.
Yeah, you get them over. It's hard to recover from that. So basically the rails just hold the formation and hold the awareness. Because if you're standing in the middle of the field and you're not looking, you're completely vulnerable. You can get ear hold, you can get head ripped. You get tripped. There's a million things that can go wrong. If you're next to a rail, you're a lot safer. So the rails and the wings will just they have kind of this like 45-degree view that kind of overlaps where they can kind of control it. And then like the centers are running around like bats out of hell. And then like the wings are kind of trading places with them a little bit to get some things to happen.
Like for instance, one of the plays, I was playing a 1, I had Cheney as my 2. He ran off to go do something. These 2 guys tried to get a double hump and bump on me, which is one of our throws. They sucked at it, so they didn't get it. So I was just holding on to these 2, and I just was waiting for Cheney to come back because he did come back. And so I was holding these 2 against the wall, and he just comes in, cracks one right in the kidneys, and then
Gets the other
And then we
guy.
get
It's
the
like
other guy.
factory reset.